You step outside with a handful of seed, or maybe you move toward the feeder you filled just a few minutes ago. For a second, your yard feels peaceful. A few birds are on the fence. One is near the bird bath, another is watching from a low branch, close enough that you think this might finally be the moment it stays. Then you take one step, everything changes. The birds freeze, lift their heads, and vanish into the trees as if your yard has suddenly become dangerous. You may tell yourself they are just shy, you may think they will get used to you eventually, but what if they are not simply afraid of people? What if they have learned something very specific about you, your house, and the way your yard feels? Birds are not random visitors. Bird behavior research suggests they notice patterns: where danger appears, how quickly you move, when noise happens, whether food is safe, and whether your yard gives them a way to escape. The strange part is, many of the mistakes that break their trust look harmless to you: walking too close, staring too long, refilling feeders at the wrong moment, letting water sit a little too long. And once birds connect your yard with stress, they may not just avoid you today, they may change their route completely. But the final mistake is the one most bird lovers never suspect, because it can make your yard feel unsafe even when you are nowhere near it. Maybe this has happened in your yard more than once. It is early in the morning, and your house is still quiet. The light is soft on the grass, a feeder hangs near the porch, moving slightly in the breeze. The bird bath catches a pale reflection of the sky. A few sparrows hop along the fence, quick and restless. Somewhere near the shrubs, a robin tilts its head toward the ground. Maybe a cardinal sits higher in the branches, bright but cautious, watching everything before making a move. You stand near the window with your coffee, hoping they stay. Or maybe you slowly open the back door because you want to refill the feeder before more birds arrive. For a moment, nothing seems wrong. Then the hinge makes a sound. Your foot touches the patio. Your hand reaches forward. And suddenly, the yard empties. At first, you may not think much of it. Birds fly away. That is what birds do. But then you start noticing the pattern. They come back only when you go inside. They avoid the side of the yard closest to your house. They visit less after certain mornings. They seem nervous around places that used to feel busy. And this is where the truth becomes uncomfortable. Your yard is not judged by your intention. It is judged by their experience. What feels like kindness to you may not feel like safety to them. Here is the belief that quietly misleads many people. Birds do not automatically trust you because you put food outside. Food may bring them into your yard, but safety is what decides whether they return. That difference matters to you. A feeder can feel like an invitation. To a bird, it is only one part of a larger question. Can I eat here without being trapped, startled, chased, watched, or hurt? Birds live by quick decisions. Bird behavior research suggests they remember places where danger appears, and they adjust their behavior around repeated risks. A sudden movement near your porch, a cat beneath the feeder, a loud door, dirty water, or a window that reflects the sky can all become part of the same warning map. That means you are not just the person who offers seed, you are part of the habitat. Your house is part of the habitat. Your timing, your sounds, your pets, your windows, and even the way you stand near the feeder can become signals birds learn to read. And most of these mistakes are not cruel. They feel normal to you, but to a small bird, harmless human habits can feel like predator pressure. So before you can earn their trust, you have to understand what quietly breaks it. In this video, you are going to uncover 10 common mistakes that can make birds lose trust in you, your yard, and sometimes the entire feeding area around your house. And these are not rare, extreme mistakes. Most of them are ordinary backyard habits. Things you may do because you care. Things that seem small from your side of the window, but feel very different from the branch, the fence, or the edge of the birdbath. For each mistake, you will see what it means from the bird's perspective, why the reaction makes sense, and what you may already be noticing in your own yard. Bird behavior research suggests that trust is built through repeated safe experiences. So if birds seem jumpy, distant, or suddenly less interested in your feeder, there may be a reason hidden in the daily rhythm of your house. This is not about blaming you. It is about helping you see your yard the way they see it. Once you understand the signals birds are reading, you can make your space calmer, safer, and easier to return to. Some mistakes scare birds instantly. But others are slower, quieter, and far more damaging. The 10 mistakes you are about to hear move from obvious to surprisingly hidden. The first few may explain why birds scatter the moment you step into your yard. The middle ones may explain why birds still visit, but never seem fully relaxed. And the final mistakes may explain something more troubling: why your yard can slowly become marked as unsafe, even when you believe you are doing everything right. Because birds do not build trust in one dramatic moment. They build it through repetition: a quiet morning where nothing scares them, a clean place to drink, a feeder that does not feel like a trap, a human who stays predictable. Field observations indicate that birds often adjust their behavior around patterns, not isolated accidents. One sudden movement may only startle them once, but repeated stress teaches them, dirty water teaches them, a cat near the feeder teaches them, loud, unpredictable activity teaches them. And when enough of those signals collect, birds may decide there is a better place to spend their energy. So watch closely for number 10, because it is not only about what you do to the birds. It is about what your yard silently teaches them when you are not paying attention. And mistake number 1 begins the moment a bird finally starts getting comfortable near you. Mistake number 1 is moving too quickly the moment birds appear. It sounds simple, but this is one of the fastest ways to reset the trust. Birds are slowly building in your yard. You may see a chickadee land near the feeder, or a cardinal drop down from the fence, and your first instinct is innocent. You want a closer look. You reach for your phone. You lean toward the window. You step softly onto the porch, thinking that because you are calm, the bird will understand you are not a threat. But birds do not read your intention first. They read movement. To a small bird, a sudden arm, a turning shoulder, a fast step, or even the shape of you leaning forward can look like the beginning of danger. Bird behavior research suggests that many birds rely on quick visual reactions because hesitation can be costly in the wild. They do not wait to confirm whether you are harmless. Their survival depends on leaving before a threat gets too close. You may notice this in your own yard when birds seem relaxed until you shift your weight, lift a hand, or open the door. 1 second they are feeding, the next they scatter into the trees. Then they return only after you are still again, or after you have gone back inside your house. That matters because every visit becomes part of their memory of your yard. The feeder is a place where sudden motion keeps interrupting them. The food may still attract them, but your presence begins to feel unreliable. The common pattern is simple, slow movements, predictable routines, and letting birds decide the distance. But that is only part of the story, because even if you move slowly, standing too close can still make your yard feel unsafe. Mistake number 2 is standing too close to feeders or birdbaths. You may think that if you stand nearby often enough, birds will eventually realize you are safe. And sometimes, with enough time, certain birds may tolerate you at a distance. But for most wild birds, trust is not built by pressure, it is built by choice. Every bird has an invisible safety boundary. Wildlife studies often describe this as the distance at which an animal decides whether to stay or escape. You cannot see that boundary, but the bird feels it very clearly. When you cross it, the bird has to make a survival decision: stay near the food and risk danger, or leave and come back later. You may notice this when birds gather in the trees while you stand near the feeder. They are not gone, they are waiting. They may flutter from branch to branch, call quietly, or watch you from the fence. The moment you walk away, they drop down again around a birdbath. You may see the same thing. Birds may want water, especially on a hot day. But if the bath is too close to where you sit, walk, or open the door, they may avoid it. This matters because the best food in your yard can still feel unsafe if birds feel trapped while using it. A feeder is not only a feeding spot, it is a decision point. If they feel watched, cornered, or forced to choose between hunger and safety, they may start choosing another yard. Real trust begins when birds are allowed to come closer on their own. But what happens next is even more surprising, because you can make birds nervous without moving toward them at all. Mistake number 3 is staring directly at birds for too long. This is one of the easiest mistakes to make, because watching birds is the whole reason you enjoy having them in your yard. You see one land close to the window, and you freeze. You lean in slightly. You focus your eyes on every tiny movement. Maybe you raise your phone or camera, trying not to scare it. But 2. A bird. Stillness does not always mean safety. In the wild, predators often lock their attention onto a target before they move. A cat crouches and stares. A hawk fixes its gaze before it strikes. So when you face a bird directly and watch it intensely, especially at close range, that attention can feel like pressure. Bird behavior research suggests many birds are sensitive to eye direction and body orientation. They notice when something is focused on them. You may see the signs in your own yard. A bird lands, then suddenly stops feeding. It lifts its head again and again. It turns sideways on the branch. It takes one seat, then flies off instead of settling in. You may not have moved at all, but the bird still behaves as if danger has found it. This does not mean you should stop watching birds. It means your attention should feel softer, watching from a side angle, staying relaxed, sitting back from the window, or letting birds feed without feeling targeted can make a difference. Because trust is not only broken by what you do with your hands or feet, sometimes it is broken by the feeling that your yard is watching back. Mistake number 4 is letting your windows become invisible threats to you. The windows of your house may look harmless. They reflect the morning sky, the trees, the feeder, and the quiet shape of your yard, but to a bird moving quickly through that space, glass can be confusing. A reflection of open sky may look like open sky. A reflection of branches may look like a safe place to fly. And sometimes the danger is not obvious until the bird is already too close. Wildlife studies show that windows are one of the most serious human-made hazards birds face around homes. But even when a bird does not hit the glass, a near miss can still create panic. A sudden reflection, a confusing escape path, or a hard strike near the feeder can make that part of your yard feel unpredictable and unsafe. You may notice small signs before you understand what is happening. A sudden thump against the window, a few feathers near the wall. Birds that feed normally in one part of your yard, but avoid the area close to your house. Or birds that scatter in panic when they fly toward a window and realize too late that the space is not open. This matters because birds do not separate your kindness from the dangers surrounding it. You may have clean seed, fresh water, and good intentions, but if the feeder sits near reflective glass, the whole area can become risky. Your house becomes part of the bird's map. And if that map includes confusion or injury, trust fades. Most people never notice this because the window is not moving, making noise, or chasing anything. It simply waits there, reflecting a world that is not real. And if glass creates a hidden physical threat, the next mistake creates a hidden health threat. Mistake number 5 is leaving feeders and bird baths dirty. This is one of the most uncomfortable mistakes because it usually begins with good intentions. You refill the feeder because you want birds to have food. You leave the bird bath out because you want them to have water. From your side, it looks generous, but from the bird's side, a dirty feeding area can quietly turn from a safe place into a risk. Old seed holes, damp seed, droppings, mold, and stagnant water can build up faster than you think. After rain, seed can clump. In warm weather, water can become cloudy. Around crowded feeders, many birds may touch the same surfaces again and again. Wildlife studies show that when birds gather in concentrated places, sickness can spread more easily than it would in open natural spaces. You may notice the warning signs in your yard. The feeder smells musty, seed sticks together at the bottom, the bird bath has a film across the surface, fewer birds visit than before, some birds arrive, look around, and leave quickly. Others may appear fluffed up, slow, or unusually still. Birds may not understand germs the way you do, but they do respond to bad conditions. If your yard becomes associated with poor food, dirty water, crowding, or sickness, the trust begins to weaken. The feeder may still be full, but full does not always mean safe. This matters because feeding birds is not only about offering something, it is about maintaining a place that does not harm them. A clean feeder and fresh water tell a different story than a neglected one. They make your yard feel more stable, more dependable, and easier to return to. But even the cleanest feeder can become dangerous if birds learn that a predator is waiting nearby. Mistake number 6 is allowing cats or pets to patrol the feeding area. This is one of the clearest signals birds can read in your yard. Your cat may be calm inside your house. Your dog may only be wandering the grass. You may know they are friendly, lazy, or uninterested, But birds do not judge your pets by personality. They judge them by shape, movement, and possibility. To a bird, a cat beneath a feeder is not background scenery, it is a predator pattern. A dog moving suddenly near a bird bath can still feel like a threat, even if it never catches anything. Bird behavior research suggests that birds adjust their feeding and movement when predators are nearby. They may spend less time eating, stay higher in the trees, or avoid the ground completely. You may notice this in small ways. Birds still appear in your yard, but they do not come down. They call sharply from the branches, they land on the fence, look toward the grass, and leave. Ground-feeding birds may disappear first. Smaller birds may wait until your pet goes indoors before they return. This matters because a feeder can accidentally become a trap when food pulls birds into the open while a predator moves nearby. Your yard teaches them a dangerous lesson. Even one close call can change how they use the space. And when alarm calls spread through the trees, other birds may learn from that fear too. This is not about choosing birds over your pets. It is about understanding that your yard is shared by animals with very different ideas of safety. To you, it may be a normal afternoon. To a bird, it may be the reason your feeder no longer feels worth the risk. But predators are not the only pattern birds remember. They also remember whether your yard can be counted on. Mistake number 7 is feeding randomly, then disappearing for long periods. Birds do not need your feeder to survive every moment of the day. They are wild animals, and they search many places for food, but once your yard becomes part of their route, they begin to learn its rhythm. They notice when food appears, when water is fresh, when the area is quiet, and when it is worth spending energy to return. So when a feeder is full for a few days, then empty for a week, then full again, then neglected during harsh weather, your yard becomes harder to trust. Not emotionally, the way a person feels disappointment, but practically, a bird has limited energy. Every trip across your neighborhood costs something if your feeder is unpredictable. Birds may decide another yard, tree line, or natural food patch is more reliable. Field observations indicate that birds often remember profitable feeding locations and revisit them when those places stay consistent. You may notice birds checking your feeder quickly, then leaving. You may see activity spike right after a refill, but never settle into a calm routine. Regular visitors may slowly stop appearing. Not because they dislike your yard, but because your yard has become uncertain. This matters most during stressful seasons. Cold mornings, migration, nesting, and dry weather can make dependable resources more valuable. If your yard sends mixed signals, birds may stop including it in their daily pattern. You do not have to be perfect, but consistency builds trust. A predictable yard tells birds, this place is worth checking again, and once food does bring birds in, the next mistake can quietly turn that gathering into stress, conflict, and fear. Mistake number 8 is creating crowded, exposed feeding spots. This is a mistake many people make because the feeder looks perfect from your point of view. You hang it where you can see it clearly from your window. Maybe it is in the middle of the yard, where the light is good and the birds are easy to watch. To you, it looks open, clean, and beautiful. But to a bird, open space can feel dangerous. Birds do not only ask, is there food here? They also ask, can I escape if something goes wrong? A feeder placed far from shrubs, trees, fences, or safe cover may force birds to expose themselves every time they eat. Small birds especially need nearby escape routes. Field observations indicate that many birds balance food against risk, and if a feeding spot feels too exposed, they may avoid it even when the food is good. You may notice birds landing near the feeder, then hesitating. They may dart in quickly, grab one seed, and vanish. Smaller birds may disappear when larger, louder birds take over. You may see chasing, wind flashing, nervous movements, and constant interruptions. The feeder is busy, but it does not feel peaceful. Crowding creates its own kind of danger. When too many birds compete in one place, stress rises. Aggressive birds may dominate, quieter species may stop visiting, and when birds are packed together on the same perches and trays, the risk of spreading sickness can also increase. This matters because a yard can be full of food and still feel unsafe if birds have to fight, rush, or expose themselves every time they visit. Your feeder becomes less like a refuge and more like a risky checkpoint, and that leads to the Final mistake. The one that ties every other mistake together. Mistake number 9 is making your yard unpredictable. This is the strongest mistake because it is not always one single thing. It is the pattern created when many small stress signals collect in the same place, a sudden movement one morning, a feeder left empty the next, a cat under the shrubs, a dirty bird bath, a loud door, a window that reflects the trees, a mower starting just as birds begin to feed. To you, these moments may feel unrelated to a bird. They can become the story of your yard. Birds survive by reading patterns. Bird behavior research suggests that many birds are just more easily to calm, predictable human activity than to random disturbance. That makes sense. A predictable yard is easier to understand. If you always sit in the same chair, move slowly, keep pets away from the feeding area, and maintain clean food and water, birds can learn the rhythm. They may still be cautious, but the space begins to make sense. But an unpredictable yard is different. One day it feels safe, the next day it feels dangerous. One moment the feeder is quiet, the next moment something rushes toward it. One week water is fresh, the next week it is cloudy. One visit leads to food, another leads to panic. For a small bird, uncertainty is expensive. Every second spent guessing is energy lost. Every hesitation in the open is risk. So when your yard becomes hard to predict, birds may choose another place that feels simpler. You may notice this before you understand it. Birds still appear at the edges of your yard, but they do not settle. They land on the fence, watch, and leave. They use the trees, but avoid the feeder. Your regular visitors become brief shadows instead of familiar guests. It can feel like they have abandoned you, but really, they may be responding to the pattern your yard has been teaching them, and that is the emotional part. Birds are not rejecting you personally, they are listening to the signals around your house. If those signals say calm, clean, steady, and safe, trust can slowly return. If they say noise, pressure, danger, and surprise, birds may choose silence, because trust is not built in one dramatic moment. It is built every ordinary morning. Your yard feels safe enough for a bird to come back. The reassuring truth is that your yard does not have to be perfect. Birds are not looking for a flawless place. They are looking for a place that feels understandable, a place where food is not surrounded by danger, a place where water is clean, a place where movement is slow, pets are not waiting underneath, and the sounds around your house do not always mean panic. If you have made some of these mistakes, it does not mean birds will never return. Trust in the wild is cautious, but it is also flexible. When the pattern changes, birds can notice that too. A quieter routine, a safer feeder location, fresh water, cleaner surfaces, and more predictable behavior can slowly rewrite the story your yard tells. And the next time you see a bird pause on your fence, look toward the feeder, and hesitate before flying down, you may understand that moment differently. It is not just a bird deciding whether to eat. It is a tiny test of trust. It is asking whether your yard feels safe enough today. So look closely at your own space. Which part of your yard seems to make birds nervous? Is it a window, a feeder, a pet, a noisy door, or something you never noticed before? Share in the comments which bird visits your yard most often, and which mistake surprised you the most. Sometimes, the smallest change around your house is what brings the birds back. One cautious visit at a time.